Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
Hello, I'm Carly Levy.
And I'm Shlomi Effigan.
We are AMHSI semester students currently taking the radio course. We are here with Gisele Ben-Dor, a JNF lay leader and a volunteer on behalf of Israel and Israel Education.
She is also an active guest conductor and a music director worldwide, as well as a great donor to AMHSI and this very radio station.
Shlomi and I would like to welcome Gisele. Thank you for coming to talk to us today.
Thank you for having me here. This is so fantastic to see you working already in this radio station and so professionally.
Yeah, it's so much fun here. So could you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
You have a week, I hope. No, I'll do it very shortly. I was born and raised in Latin America, in Uruguay, and I came to Israel on Aliyah when I was 17. I lived here many, many years. Right now I live mostly in the United States, but I come to Israel every 2 months because I have an entire family here. And I started playing piano when I was 4 and conducting when I was 12. And then I came to the United States to study at Yale. And after that, I was on my own and started guest conducting all around the world and worked with great musicians like Leonard Bernstein, who was one of a kind. Maybe every 200 years there is a musician like that. And I've conducted many of the most excellent orchestras in the world, including almost all orchestras in Israel. And this time that I'm visiting here, I'm also conducting later in November.
Very nice. You said that you live in America. Where in America do you live?
I live in the East Coast. I shuttle between New Jersey and New York. I have a son that studies at Stanford in California. That's in Palo Alto, so I visit there as well. But I mostly come over the ocean, either to Israel or to Europe.
You said you made Aliyah at age 17.
Mm-hmm.
Was it a difficult decision?
No, not at all. Not for me. For my family, it was a different story altogether. For a different combination of circumstances. I had decided that I would come and live in Israel when I was 15, and I was here on a visit with my grandmother, and I decided that I had been like the place. I knew it, like I had been here before. And of course, we had a very thorough Jewish education, so that was part of it as well, to have a very strong sense of identity. And I decided that I was staying in Israel at age 15, and I would finish high school. I would probably have come to Alexander Mas to finish my high school degree. But my father said, I'm coming and picking you by the year, and you're going back to Uruguay, and you'll finish high school there. So I waited those 2 years and did everybody a great favor and finished high school, and then packed 2 bags and came here by myself. My family came later for other reasons, for reasons of anti-Semitism and new fascist regime that arose in Latin America. So it also affected Uruguay, and they had a very, very hard time there, and they suddenly felt that they had to be in a place where they would be normal and they would be secure as Jews.
Okay. So about the music, when did you first realize you had a passion for music, specifically conducting?
Conducting is something I usually say that it's probably something you're born with. It's like a type of bossy personality where you are always convinced that all your friends have to do exactly as you say, and then you direct them normally. I started conducting when I was 12, so I conducted my own friends, my own peers. But music comes very early and takes hold of you. It's not something you pick. You don't pick it. It's a common, it's a cliche, but it's so true that it picks you. So I was already asking for a piano when I was 3. So I got a piano as a gift for my 4th birthday. And I remember the day that I first saw the piano, like I see you right now so clearly, because it was a fantastic moment. One of my earliest recollections was being dressed up all day long in white and with flowers embroidered, because I knew that in the evening they were going to show me the piano. So I dressed up to go and visit with the piano. And they had it hidden in the living room. It was closed, and then when the doors opened, I just remember myself that way. So it happens very early on for anyone who's going to be a professional musician. Music calls very early on, and then the pattern of study or specialization, that can vary in many ways.
Do you have a special interest in radio specifically?
I have not had experience with radio, but for giving a lot of interviews like this, but I do have a great interest in recording, and I have done quite a few recordings. That means that I like the process of listening after I've performed something, listen and choosing, and basically radio is the closest to the oral aspect of music. Music is to be listened to, right?
Yes.
So everything that is visual about the conductor is pretty much because you just happen to be there and moving your hands around and making a great impression, but the role of the conductor is to listen, first of all. So I feel close to the medium of the radio, and of course when I was young, we had very little TV. I remember in Uruguay, we had, I think it was all black and white. I know you wouldn't know what I'm talking about. It was black and white, and there were maybe 2 channels, and one of them we were not allowed to watch, and the other one had cartoons. So we listened to the radio a lot, particularly music. I learned every type of folk and popular style of music from listening to tangos and milongas and cha-cha-chas and all types of local music from the Andes, carnavalitos, you name it. So, and I learned to play the guitar that way to be able to sing those songs, which has nothing to do with the classical music that I conduct today. So all that came via radio.
So what is your favorite piece to perform?
That is a very common question, and actually it's impossible to answer it, but there is a standard answer that musicians use, and they will say, my favorite piece is the one I'm playing right now. Why? And there's a reason for that. It's not just trying to be smart, but because you are putting everything you've got, everything in your mind, your heart, even physically, if you're a conductor or you're a singer, anything that requires everything, every part of your system, then at that moment there is, not only it's your favorite, but there is no other piece of music at that moment because you're entirely focused on it. But otherwise, there are just so many. The next question that maybe, one day you will ask another musician, if you were in a deserted island and you could only, for the rest of your life, and you could only take 3 pieces of music, which would those be? And I've answered that in many different ways, always picked from one of the great choral works that have human voice, that have chorus and they're uplifting. Maybe the ending of Mahler's Second Symphony. Then I thought, I also like popular music. I mostly like Brazilian bossa nova because I grew up right there and I just love the rhythm, the way it can be very subtle and the rhythms are very complex, very special. I also like to dance, so that's the kind of thing that makes me move. And then there's always that third piece that I can never make up my mind if it's going to be Bach or it's going to be a song in Ladino or what it's going to be. But I specialize in music of classical composers from Latin America. That I do all the repertoire, but I specialize in those composers from the continent that I grew up in, because the truth is that there are not that many conductors doing that music. You'll hear about, of course, Beethoven and Brahms and Tchaikovsky, and you'll hear all the great, Mozart, of course, all the great names and newer names. But you're not going to hear about Ginastera, or not so much about Villa-Lobos, or not so much of Revueltas. You probably never heard the name. So I do world premieres of pieces, recordings, mostly world premiere recordings of a lot of those pieces. And then I feel that I'm making a contribution to music, not just for my own success.
Was your family a big influence in your love for music, or was it just something that evolved over time for you?
I think as a classical musician, I was pretty much apart, and it was a different path. I know my mother has a beautiful voice. Thank God my parents are here in Israel, and I visit with them every 2 months. My dad has a perfect ear, and none of them became musicians. None of them, they have very humble origins. They were immigrants, twice immigrants. And I think I inherited abilities from them. And they allow me to study anything I wanted at any time. If I wanted to pursue music, I could pursue music. If it was conducting, it was conducting. There were some strings attached. My dad said, you have to get married as well. You can't just go around in the world conducting orchestras. You know, he as a father, he had his own preoccupations. Basically, I am self-taught in a lot of things. I taught myself to read scores, musical scores. I taught myself to play the guitar, but I had instruction in piano. My parents didn't agree. My dad didn't agree that I should have another instrument, because I was also studying Hebrew every single day, and Jewish education took a lot of my time in Uruguay at the same time that I was studying everything else. So I was a little overworked as a student, even as a high schooler, but it didn't kill me, and actually made me quite sturdy and stronger for what the life would bring later on, which is a lot of concentration, stress, a lot of traveling. So I was well prepared for a life in music, and in anything I think that I would have chosen.
So we have a sign that says that you donated this radio station in honor of your grandson.
Yes, I have two. I'm a very proud grandmother, so I hope you won't let me talk for too long about this. But Liam is the youngest. He's 1 year old. His brother is 3 years old. And I'm making plans. I'm thinking now if there is something close here in the high school that I could put together so both kids would feel honored and mesmerized, not just, honor when they grow up a little bit. My dream is that they would come often to Israel, that they will have a closeness to Israel, that they will understand the importance of Israel. And today, it's not as easy as it was in the previous generation to make sure that the next generation will remain Jewish and will remain committed to Judaism and to Israel. My sons, I've raised the way I thought, but they say that the true test is the grandchildren.
Yeah.
So it's a drop in the ocean. I don't think it will be the only thing that should be done, but it is one that I dream about, to bring them, the two of them, and say, look, there's your name, this is yours, this radio station is yours. Yeah. Maybe they will let you push all the buttons.
Literally.
You were talking about connections to Israel. Could you tell us about your connection to Israel and what you think about it?
Well, my connection to Israel, as I said, was instinctive, and it was early on. To me, when I was 15, I remember in the youth organization, the Zionist organization, of course I was raised very, very profoundly Zionist, and my parents didn't want us to learn Yiddish, which was the language, the Jewish language that they spoke. They didn't allow us to learn that. Instead, they wanted us to learn Hebrew, so I was fluent in Hebrew, living in the diaspora by the time I came to Israel on Aliyah. And so were my classmates as well. Many of them came. So to me, maybe it was a matter of harmony. I gave this speech in the youth movement, and I surprised myself, but I said, a Jew, if he's a Jew, has to live in Israel. I was 15, I didn't know everything, but to me it was clear that it was a matter of harmony. You are a Jew, you belong to the Israelites, to the Jewish people. There is a country, is Israel, everybody's Jewish there. I figured it out like that, imagine, it was a land of dreams. And actually, every time that I see one of the, we call them piggy banks, but it's not nice. The pushka, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, tzedakah box, Yofi. Thank you so much. Every time I see the JNF, the Keren Kayemet tzedakah box, I see myself back on Kita Aleph, first grade, Jewish school, Kabbalat Shabbat. Every Friday, we would put some coins there, and we would sing a song. It's a song that many people still remember, about the dream of building Eretz Israel. So, to me, it was a fairy tale as fantastic as any other, imagined land, like in the real, fairy tales. Today I would say Bobbemeinses, these just stories that are not realistic. But at that time, Israel was something marvelous in the literal sense of the word. So I grew up like that, and I guess my roots were very strong, and my memories were very strong, and they stayed that way. So the connection is it's like a seed, you plant it, and then it will grow. We've tried to do that with our children, and in many ways we have succeeded. And there's still way to go. There are still things that I'm trying to accomplish. And already I spoke about my fantastic grandchildren.
When did you get involved with the JNF?
It's going to be, in a few days, it's going to be 10 years. And how do I know that? Because my son, the younger one, is going to be 23 in November, early November. And when he had a bar mitzvah, we purchased a lot of trees, a lot. So from that point on, the JNF knew us. They knew that we were friendly people to JNF. And I was basically invited to come and serve in the board in the North Jersey region. And we proceeded from there. There were people to remember. We started with a forest in the name of my husband's deceased brother, his only sibling. So we started, from basic things. And later we became interested also in projects in areas that are developing communities that are small and they're growing in the Negev, for example, etc. So it's a love affair. It's now going to be 10 years.
Very nice. Well, we wanted to thank you so much for coming in.
My pleasure.
And telling us about yourself. We want to thank you for donating this amazing radio station.
Thank you. I'm so happy to see you're enjoying it, and it looks just like all the other professional, major city radio stations that I've been to.
Very cool.
Even this mic is beautiful.
Very cool. Amazing equipment. And Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Enjoy.
Thank you very much.
Love you.